90 defects on a single brand new powerboat, and most of them were safety critical. That's what one of the most respected marine consultants in the country documented during a routine pre-delivery inspection. Not on a used boat from the 80s, on a factory-fresh vessel that hadn't touched the water yet. Pre-delivery inspections on new boats routinely turn up 50 to 100 problems before the owner ever turns a key, and the vast majority of buyers never get those inspections done. What makes this worse is the thing nobody talks about at boat shows. Hull structural integrity, the single most important factor keeping your boat from sinking, is completely unregulated in the United States. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly where new boats fail, why the industry has almost no incentive to fix it, and what one simple step separates informed buyers from very expensive lessons. Here's the strongest piece of evidence in this entire story. A marine consultant who spent 19 years as a mechanic and boatyard manager launched his own firm for a single reason, and that reason was watching too many new boat buyers show up at his yard, stunned by the cost of correcting safety and reliability problems on boats they'd just purchased. His inspections aren't quick walkthroughs with a clipboard. On one new-build powerboat alone, the documentation ran to over 90 individual defects, not cosmetic scuffs or loose trim pieces, but failures that affected safety and reliability on the water. Those reports consistently reveal more serious issues than standard marine surveys uncover, and this consultant inspects boats from respected builders, premium brands carrying 6- and 7-figure price tags. That raises an uncomfortable question. If the expensive boats carry 90 problems, what's hiding inside the models engineered to hit a price point? Answering that question means looking at the specific defects service yards encounter over and over again. Starting with the category that causes more catastrophic failures than any other. Over half of all boat fires trace back to the electrical system, and the wiring problems behind those fires are often baked in at the factory. What mechanics routinely discover on brand new boats tells the story. Wire nuts used in marine applications, which are explicitly prohibited under ABYC Standard E11. Non-marine grade wire routed through bilge areas where it sits in standing water. Daisy-chained grounds that create fire risks nobody can see without pulling panels. And one of the sneakiest substitutions in the entire industry, automotive SAE wire swapped in where proper UL1426 marine-rated wire should be. The difference matters more than most buyers realize. Automotive wire runs up to 12% smaller in diameter than the equivalent AWG marine wire, which means it carries less current and corrodes faster in a saltwater environment. For a manufacturer pushing 100 boats a month off, the production line, switching from marine-grade to automotive-grade wire across every circuit saves real money per hull. The buyer never notices. The boat runs fine for a season or two, and then connections corrode, resistance builds, and heat develops exactly where it shouldn't be. What comes next is less dramatic on the surface, but potentially far more expensive to repair. Transom rot used to be something you'd associate with boats that had been sitting in the water for 20 years. That timeline has collapsed. Lund boats manufactured during the Genmar ownership era, roughly 2000 through 2007, developed widespread transom rot in boats less than a decade old, with reports of soft and spongy transoms surfacing on models as recent as 2009. The problem grew serious enough that Lund now offers a lifetime transom warranty for original owners on post-2007 models, and that warranty tells you everything about the scale of what happened. Typical transom replacement runs between $5,000 and $15,000, but one owner of a 2007 Grady White received a quote for $37,000. The root causes repeat across brands, factory-drilled holes left unsealed, sealant that fails from flexing, and trim tab or transducer mounts that open pathways for water to migrate into the core material. Balsa core hull construction created an even larger problem for one of the industry's biggest names. Sea Ray boats in the 40 to 55-foot range built between 1995 and 2002 at the Merritt Island facility experienced moisture intrusion through balsa core hull bottoms, which led to delamination and rot. A marine surveyor who documented these failures extensively found that laminate strength on nominally identical boats of the same model varied by plus or minus 33%, which means two boats rolling off the same production line on the same afternoon could have dramatically different structural integrity. Many of those Sea Ray cases ended in lawsuits that were resolved through settlements requiring non-disclosure agreements, which means the full scope of the damage may never become public. Most buyers think about structure and wiring as the big-ticket concerns, and that's fair. What catches people off guard is the category of defect that stays invisible until the moment it matters most. Your bilge pump represents your last line of defense against sinking, and the majority of bilge pump systems installed at the factory are compromised by design and installation faults that cut actual output by as much as 75%. Think about what that means in practice. A pump rated at 2,000 gallons per hour, once you account for the hose runs, fittings, and wiring as the factory installed them, may only move 500 gallons when your boat is actually taking on water. Unsealed connectors, missing antisiphon valves, and improperly installed check valves show up on new boats with disturbing regularity. Through hull fittings create another layer of hidden risk. These are the hardware connections between your boat's interior plumbing and the ocean itself, and pre-delivery inspections routinely flag thread incompatibility between valves and fittings in violation of ABYC Standard H27. Nickel-plated brass appears where marine bronze should be, and the two look identical to an untrained eye, even though nickel-plated brass was never designed for prolonged seawater contact. The test that matters is simple. Any raw water plumbing component that would flood the boat if it failed should survive someone stepping on it without breaking. A surprising number of factory-installed fittings can't pass that test on delivery day. Hardware quality rounds out the picture. Quality problems with cast bronze and stainless rigging components became widespread enough that riggers began telling new boat owners to replace their turnbuckles and toggles before ever leaving the dock. Stainless steel sourced from overseas raised particular alarm, with testing showing insufficient confidence that metallurgical quality would hold up in marine service. A basic magnet test exposes the issue instantly because proper marine-grade stainless steel doesn't carry enough iron content to attract a magnet, and if your hardware sticks, it's substandard. The defects are real, they're well documented, and they run across the full range of boat systems. Which brings up the question every buyer should be asking. Why do new boats leave the factory this way in the first place? The answer starts with understanding who actually builds your boat, because the name on the hull and the corporation behind it are usually two very different things. Brunswick Corporation now controls over 60 brands, including Sea Ray, Bayliner, Boston Whaler, Lund, Crestliner, Harris Pontoons, and Mercury Marine Engines. That consolidation started back in 1986 when Brunswick acquired Bayliner and Sea Ray for $773 million, and the company has been absorbing brands ever since. September 2025 brought fresh consolidation news when Brunswick announced it was shutting down its Reynosa, Mexico fiberglass facility and closing the Flagler Beach, Florida plant, pointing to what the company called evolving market dynamics impacting industry-wide volumes of value fiberglass products. Malibu Boats followed the same acquisition playbook at a smaller scale. Cobalt came aboard in 2017 for $130 million, Pursuit joined in 2018, and the Maverick Boat Group, which includes Cobia, Pathfinder, Maverick, and Hughes, was acquired in 2021 for $150 million. After absorbing Cobalt, Malibu publicly stated a goal of extracting $7.5 million in cost and operational synergies by year 4. Synergies, in corporate language, means cuts. And then COVID arrived, and the entire industry shifted into overdrive with the workforce nowhere close to ready. Nearly 320,000 new powerboats sold in 2020, a 13-year high representing a 13% jump over 2019 volumes. That single year brought 415,000 first-time boat buyers into the market, accounting for 31% of all new boat sales. When you combine 2020 and 2021, 800,000 first-time buyers entered the market in just 24 months. Brunswick's CEO reported that 2021 production slots sold out for the calendar year, with 5 brands completely gone through the 2022 model year, and Back Cove Yachts saw order backlogs stretching close to 2 years. Factories hired anyone who would show up. The soundings trade? Only Dealer Pulse report captured the fallout directly, with dealers reporting wave after wave of quality problems tied to new factory hires and manufacturers struggling to deliver product on time and in decent condition. Half the dealers surveyed reported service backlogs running 2 weeks to a month, and those backlogs kept growing because the quality problems rolling off production lines generated even more warranty work. Boating forums painted the same picture from the owner's side. Boats described as assembled by people pulled in off the street corner where every through-hull fitting and even the boat drain plug leaked from day one. The phrase COVID build has since become a recognized warning flag in the used boat market, a label buyers actively screen for before putting money down. All of that production chaos played out against a supply chain that was falling apart at the same time. Resin prices jumped from $850 to $1,250 per 55-gallon drum, a 44% spike that hit every fiberglass builder simultaneously. Flotation foam, gel coat, stainless steel, and marine heads all went short. The February 2021 Texas winter storms knocked out chemical manufacturing plants across the Gulf Coast, disrupting petroleum-based products and fiberglass materials at the source. An outdoor recreation roundtable survey found that 91% of industry respondents experienced production and distribution problems, with 48% calling the impact severe. When the right materials weren't available, some manufacturers built with whatever they could get their hands on. And here's the part of this story that deserves far more attention than it receives. Even before COVID hit, even before the consolidation wave started, the system designed to catch these problems was never built to work in the first place. Under 33 CFR Part 183, the U.S. Coast Guard oversees a narrow set of recreational boat construction requirements. Capacity and safe loading standards apply only to boats under 20 feet. Flotation standards cover only boats under 20 feet. Basic electrical, fuel, and ventilation systems receive limited oversight, and that's essentially where federal authority ends. Here's what falls outside federal regulation entirely. Hull structural integrity, meaning there are no mandated standards for hull thickness, laminate schedules, stringer construction, or material specifications. No construction requirements of any kind apply to boats 20 feet or longer. No quality control protocols exist at the federal level. No production inspections are required. No seaworthiness testing needs to be performed or passed. The contrast with the automotive industry makes the gap impossible to ignore. Cars and trucks operate under more than 100 mandatory federal motor vehicle safety standards covering crash avoidance, crash worthiness, and post-crash survivability. Even the RV industry, which has its own well-known quality struggles, conducts over 2,000 unannounced factory inspections every year through the RVIA certification program. Recreational boats sit at the bottom of that regulatory ladder. Voluntary standards do exist within the marine industry. NMMA. Certification covers 85 to 90% of boats sold in the United States, but manufacturers choose whether to participate, and that choice is entirely optional. Between 10 and 15% of boats sold carry no voluntary certification whatsoever. A BYC standards addressing electrical, fuel, and steering systems operate without an inspection program to verify whether manufacturers actually comply, and that compliance is entirely self-certified with no independent verification. The boating press has described it in plain terms. U.S. regulatory bodies, including the Coast Guard and voluntary agencies like ABYC, have sidestepped the structural issue, which leaves recreational boat builders free to adopt their own version of what counts as strong enough. What that means in practice is that every manufacturer decides for itself how strong to build its boats, and nobody independently checks the work, which raises the fair question of whether any manufacturer actually builds to a higher standard, and the answer turns out to be yes, convincingly. Quality boat construction isn't a mystery, and it isn't unaffordable. A handful of manufacturers prove that every time they launch a hull. Grady White operates out of Greenville, North Carolina, and uses hand-laid hulls with knitted and woven fiberglass fabrics instead of chopper gun application. The company eliminated wood from its construction process entirely in 2012, transitioning to all composite stringers across every model. That commitment to build quality earned Grady White the #1 ranking in all 8 J.D. Power Marine studies ever conducted, a streak no other boat manufacturer has matched. Boston Whaler's patented Unibond foam core construction delivers up to 2.5 times the flotation the Coast Guard requires, and the company's 316-grade stainless steel hardware is the same alloy grade specified for luxury watches and structural skyscraper components. The famous demonstration where a whaler gets cut in half and both pieces keep floating isn't showmanship, it's a public engineering audit that no competitor has replicated. Regulator Marine in Edenton, North Carolina builds each hull as a single solid piece with zero wood anywhere in the construction. Stringer, hull, liner, and deck cap are individually manufactured, then bonded, fiberglassed, and foam-filled together into one unit. The boats come out intentionally heavy because they're designed to handle North Carolina's Outer Banks conditions, and that weight is structural, not wasted. Even in the aluminum segment, Tracker Boats operates as the only aluminum fishing boat manufacturer running robotic welding on stringers and transoms, backed by multi-million-dollar precision laser cutting systems that produce parts fitting tight enough to improve weld consistency across the entire production line. The company follows Lean Sigma methodology, the same quality framework used in automotive and aerospace manufacturing. These manufacturers prove the central point of this entire video. The technology exists, the materials are available, the production methods work. Quality in boat building is not a technical limitation, it is a business decision that some companies make and others don't. During the 2024 reporting period, 63 manufacturers cleared the NMMA's 90% plus customer satisfaction threshold, measured through a program that surveys over 275,000 boat owners annually. An independent study found that boats built to ABYC standards are up to 47% less likely to be involved in certain types of accidents, and adherence to those standards may reduce fatalities by as much as 58%. The standards work when anyone commits to following them. European marine surveyors operate on a principle worth repeating. Defects always occur when buying a new boat, which means the only question is whether you find them before or after you take delivery. That's the Boatyard secret flipped on its head. Service yards already know new boats arrive broken, and the smartest buyers figured that out too. The difference between a good experience and a nightmare comes down entirely to timing. One buyer hired an independent consultant before signing the final paperwork, and the inspection turned up over 50 problems in the basic build. The manufacturer agreed with virtually every finding and completed the repairs before the boat changed hands. That owner took delivery of a vessel that was actually ready for the water, while the buyer at the next slip over who skipped the inspection probably wasn't as fortunate. Survey data backs this up in a meaningful way. 88% of boat owners eventually received satisfaction on their warranty claims, but only the owners who identified the problems in the first place and actively pushed for resolution. The USCG recall database holds 1,752 total recalls, with recent entries covering Kawasaki PWC fuel system issues, Lund engine interference problems, and Vision marine flotation test failures. That database is public and fully searchable, and the overwhelming majority of buyers never think to check it. The Boatyard secret was never really a secret at all. The information just lives in service bays and surveyor reports instead of making its way to showroom floors. Marine mechanics have understood for years that new doesn't mean ready for the water. Inspectors know from experience that factory-fresh boats carry dozens of defects, and the regulatory system has never required anyone to close that gap. What sits at the center of this story is the distance between what buyers assume they're getting and what actually rolls off the production line, and that distance can be measured in dollars, in safety, and sometimes in lives. One phone call to an independent marine surveyor before you sign the paperwork can close that gap entirely. Now you know what the boatyards have known for decades. What you do with that information is up to you. If this changed how you think about buying a boat, subscribe to Fleet Watch. We cover the marine industry stories that manufacturers and dealers would rather keep out of the conversation. And if you've had your own experience with a new boat that wasn't what it should have been, drop it in the comments. Every story adds to the picture.